uh, in this Hello everyone. In this video I will try to explain why I want to use DIMS, and I prefer to use DIMS, and I don't prefer for a specific task to use SSMS, SQL Server Management Studio, or Azure. I will try to explain the tools from top to bottom and from left to right. The first thing that I want to mention here is about the scripts and about the instances against which you can run the scripts. To input the instance name against which you want to run the script, you choose, you press this button and you put the instance name here. At least when the application is launching, the script is retrieving a list of scripts from the database repository and the connection string for these scripts. So if I want to run script on this instance, I can select it from here and put it here, or I can just type it here. Okay, let's execute the same script that I execute in SSMS. I will search for the script. So this tool is not just a script repository. You can do other things too, but we'll explain them one by one. After you select the script, you just press the execute button. The script will be executed, and the output will be displayed in the result set, which is this tab. I need to mention that I'm doing this on Azure virtual machine, and its hardware is not as big as it should be, and with all this other application I might run out of the memory and so on, so it will take longer time for the script execution than it should. The first thing that I can do here is I can filter the result set. SSMS and Azure Data Studio didn't offer this possibility. You can filter the result set using T-SQL query, but I wanted to have the opportunity to filter the result set. So, for example, I can choose here and I can filter the result set. The other thing that you can do is you can order. I will clear the filter. The other thing that you can do, and it seems, but of course these are tools which can allow the execution of and retrieving of millions of rows, and this is a tool that I created to deal and retrieve metadata about SQL Server, so bear this in mind. Here you cannot order the columns, and sometimes it's good to have this feature to be able to order the result set based on the column header. Azure Data Studio, it seems, is not doing it also. But if I want to order the speed, you can click and you can order them, which it's a good feature to have. So you can filter. The other thing that you can do and is not available in the other tools is the selection. Of course, both tools allows you to say the result set. As CSV, Excel, JSON, XML. In the GUI, I give this possibility like export to CSV file. And I give this possibility also. Insert rows in the database repository. Rows inserted successfully. I will insert also this result set in the database repository. Okay, I will stop and close SQL Server Profiler in order to have more resources for the application, and we'll go back to retrieve the data from the tables. Repository, retrieve, and here we can see the table, and it was created today. So we'll just select it and retrieve data from. The script is executing. I believe it would be better to just close some SSMS or to Azure Data Studio in order to have more memory for the application. Okay, we have the data, and let's suppose for our test that we want to see how many sessions, which sessions are different in this result set. For example, I can just go here because as you can see we have a different insert time, create data internal. If we try to filter, we have 4:43 10 p.m. I insert them in the same time, so not a good example. Let me run CPU again and insert it CPU. Execute. Insert result set in the database. We go back to database tables in database repository. We'll just because the table is already here, we should see the table. Let's see if it is retrieve data from the tables in the DB repository. Okay, create date we select the table again and we'll retrieve data again. And this time we should have two time stamps and we can compare. For example, I can choose to hierarchy display this. So let's say that I want to display them vertically, and I will display the columns from this table, and I want for the instance name to start with instance name, and I want to I have a new session, a new speed, so I will choose create date internal, and I can choose the speed. And in this at this point it doesn't make or is not useful information because you need to scroll and it's hard to spot which database, so we can display them as column. And here we can see the difference between the number of speeds in the execution. This is also good, for example, when you create a new login on the server. You can see exactly which login was created, and you can spot the differences. Another thing that is good to have here, I will just remove the speed. Between these samples, I want to see the program names, the application connected, or maybe the host, the servers which were connected to that to this SQL server. So I will put here, and I see this. And if I want to share this information with somebody, I will just copy to tabular, and you can write an email and you can paste this information, which is easy to search after. For example, in email, if you put pictures, it's taking maybe more space, but it will be very hard for people to consume this result set. But having this possibility to paste it as text in HTML format gives you more power. Although it took long to describe this feature, this is something that SSMS and also Azure Data Studio doesn't have. They don't have filtering. They don't give the possibility to save in a specific Hadoop. They can very easily implement them, but for the time being, these options are not available. You cannot save the result set in a repository, and after that when you want to consume that data from the repository, you don't have this display hierarchically, horizontally or vertically. I will come back to those features. Another thing that I have here, and it's good to have when you want to share data, some of the result sets, databases, separate databases, for example. Let's execute it. It is these databases. Has a huge number of columns. So this, when you try to copy this result set, if you want to share this information in SSMS, if we try to execute this, copy with headers. If you try to share this information in Outlook or in Teams, sometimes the table name is databases. Copy with headers. As you can see, it has a lot of columns, and the output is hard to read. I never tried this to see how it is in Azure Data Studio. Let me try to see. Control C. Copy with headers, and if you try to share this information with somebody in Outlook or Teams, it also displays it like this. Because of this, I decided to put in DIMS to transpose the row, exactly what you would have done in Excel. You would have just copied this in Excel, and you would have transposed the rows, and after that you'll just selected the transpose row from Excel and paste it in Outlook. Because I didn't want to change the application, I just created here like a feature with transpose the rows. And this is easier to be read by somebody else, or easier to be understood if you paste it in Outlook or in Teams. So you will try to copy and paste it in Outlook. It's easier for a person to just to just read and consume the output. So this these are some of the things that SSMS and Azure Data Studio doesn't have for a result set. Another thing that I was missing when working or using SSMS and SQL Server is that we have to know a lot of things, and the queries that we are using returns a lot of data and a lot of columns with very weird, or let's say not so understandable column names, and it's very difficult to give a meaning to the output. So for example, for cpwho script, I can attach some legend, for example, and if I select the cell under the column, it will search. If I'm going to view legend, I will see exactly what this means. So this is information about the script. Use a background thread such as resource monitor or deadlock monitor. If you run, for example, scripts like this one, scheduler, or scripts which are retrieving data, internal data, it becomes more difficult to understand the output of the script and everything and what every column means, because we cannot, or at least me, I cannot keep in memory all this information. So for some specific scripts, we can map a dictionary containing helper for these scripts, and whenever you click on a column, it will tell you more about that column, or in some cases it will tell you more about the cell value that you just selected, as you can see that background. Let's wait for this script to finish. While this script is finishing, I will go back and speak about this. Another thing that I lack in SSMS and Azure Data Studio, although for Azure Data Studio we have a plugin for central management server, and you can execute scripts against multiple servers, is that you cannot select the servers on which you want to execute individually or manually, or you cannot paste a list of scripts, a list of servers against which you want to execute the scripts. This is the reason for which I added this functionality in this GUI. So for example, if I want to execute the scripts against two instances, I can paste them here and execute the script. I will show it in a bit, but for the time being I'm waiting for this script to finish. Let's cancel it. It takes too much. Query was cancelled by user. Okay, so let's suppose that I want to run not cpwho. Why not? Because we are using this cpwho. Sorry, against two instances that are running on my computer, but of course we can run against two remote instances that we have in the repository. So I will select the second script and I will just execute them. And we go back to the result set, and here we have the output of the script, and we can see here we can filter after this, and this is easier. And also what I like you can enter the script, because usually we are receiving a list of server names in a tabular format, or a format where the servers names are one under each other. So for example, if we receive an email with DIMS 1, I will just copy this server names. I'm going to the application and I will paste them here, manually entered servers, and I will go to select another script. Let's say sys databases, separate databases, execute. Okay, and if I'm going back, we can see the output. If I want to compare this again, I can easily go here and I can go to display horizontally this time to see the difference. I will delete because I want to use the new. I will put the instance name and I will put the database name, and I can see here which databases are on which server on every server. I can choose them to display vertically, and I will unselect and select again this database. I will choose them as a column, and because these are ordered, somehow you can see here the difference. The difference is the same because in my repository, as you can see, DIMS and DIMS1 are pointing to my default instance. That's why we don't see any difference here. I forgot about this, so actually we'll select the script against this instance to have a different information. So let me copy this instance name. Actually, no, let me copy both of them. Control C. We go back to here. We'll paste, and the below servers will be removed because it copied with the header by default. Okay, and I will just execute this script again. Execute. Now in the result set we see a different list of databases. So let's check again, because we have the same name of columns. I will just update this by unselecting this column and put it again and representing it again as a column. So we see the differences, and this can be used for multiple purposes. So when it comes to results set, there are few things which SSMS and Azure Data Studio doesn't have, and makes the life of DBA easier. Another features that I put for the result set are distinct values. So for this, if I want to see the distinct values for a specific column or a list of columns, I can just click here. Another feature which is useful sometimes is to distinct two columns. I can choose distinct values will become columns. So for example, I want to see somehow a transpose information, so I will choose the instance name will become columns. And for values, I will choose database name. Sometimes, again, in specific scenarios, this way to see the data is more useful. I spoke about the distinct values. I spoke about distinct two columns. I spoke about display vertically, about horizontally, about transpose rows. This edit table, I will not present it here. The related script, as you can see, for some specific scripts, we can associate some scripts. Let's go back to CPU. So for CPU, we have associated script which will receive as input parameter some of the cells from the selected row. For example, if I want to get more information about about a session, let's suppose that I want to get more information about this session. I will just get sessions, get the last batch for it all, get session isolation level. So I can run this script. Okay, running, and read committed. But let's go back, because I selected here. Let's go back to the legend. So here the speed is in runnable, so we have information about what runnable means, and this help, or for this is very useful when you are trying to make more sense about the result set of a query. Let's try to use another script for which I have help for the columns, stats. Let's see, execute, return no rows. Okay, later. Going back to result sets, we'll choose CPU again. Going back to table tools, knowledge base, I will come explain this later. Glossary also, I will come to explain later. Parse XML, it's a feature that will help me to view the execution plan in a tabular format. We can try to use this one uh, later in the video, and also this new column later in the video. But for the time being, I want to be sure that I explain all the differences and everything that you can do with result set, result set here. Also, I saw that Azure Data Studio offers you the possibility to view the data. So let's run CPU again. And here we can see the data, and you can chart, you can use a graph to display the data. I try to add this functionality also in DIMS. So if we are going to chart, I'll choose the charting option, and let's say we want to display speed. By default, we have this, this like a line chart, and we don't have a date column, but because we retrieve the data from the database that we saved with the CPU, let's retrieve the data. Retrieve data. So we'll go back here. Why the possibility to insert data in the database repository? It's helpful because, for example, we can chart this data, and we can see aggregation of this data based on the timestamp. So if we are going back to the chart, I'm sorry, we'll go for the chart, and we'll say speed and the count of the speed, and we'll put as axis the create date internal. So as we can see, and we'll choose system idle, but we go back, we want to have the line chart. We choose datetime as axis, and now we will choose the values, the sum, because they will be unique. The display looks appropriately. Even now when we are using this one, it's more appropriately. Let's suppose that we will add another column in the in the chart. We'll choose also the sum, and we'll see some differences. And if we go back to line chart, we'll see it here. So another option that is available in Azure Data Studio but is not available in SSMS is the fact that you can chart the data. So I decided to add this functionality also in this in the tool. Some of SQL Server system idle, we can see there are different type of charts, and you can use the scroll feature. If you scroll here, you can see the data. Okay, going back to result sets. Whenever SQL Server's scripts are executed, I also have some statistic about the server executed, about the script that was executed, bytes received, and so on, which might be meaningful for when you are troubleshooting SQL Server response time. Okay, going back to result sets, so I show the filtering capability, I show the transpose row capability, I show the view legend and the help that you have for the scripts, I show the distinct values, I show everything that I wanted to show here. And this, this is discover and query. Another thing that I was missing in SSMS, but SSMS it's a SQL Server specific tool, and Azure Data Studio, which is also you can run queries against different database servers, was the fact that I was not able to execute PowerShell scripts and display the result in tabular format. Of course, you can run PowerShell scripts, and you have outgrid feature outgrid feature in PowerShell, but it's still you still have to do more work about this. So, for example, we can run here DBA disk space DIMS. So this will provide the disk space, the disk space for our SQL Server instance. When you want to copy paste this output to somebody is not so good. So, and if you want to, you can display it in tabular format. And you can try to copy it. You have some filter functionality, but you cannot consume data more than what is provided here. So if I want to copy this, the output, and I want to share it with other people, it's a nicely formatted. Although this is closer, so it should be like this, and so on like this. So I decided to added the execution of the PowerShell scripts to the application, and the possibility to share that information. And I can run PowerShell scripts using in from two places, from discover and query, or from here. Let me go to a repository, and let me services. Yes, service. So let's execute the script. Okay, so we have the output, and if I want to share this information, I will not repeat again about the filtering capability and all the other features that we spoke. But if I want to share this, I will just copy to tabular format, and I will just paste it and send it. And also it's very easy, because sometimes people or we receive requests as a DBA to see the differences between two servers. For example, it will be easier for me to just show this using cp configure. But for example, you can have a PowerShell script which retrieve data, and you just want to see the difference between two servers. But for the time being, I will just explain with cp configure. So configure, and I want to execute it against those multiple instances. So I have DIMS M. I will choose them manually. DIMS first on this one, and on the other one. So let me copy paste here. Take it from the notepad. DIMS SQL Server. Control-C. Going back to the application. Okay, because doesn't exist in the repository. What is the server name? Is DIMS MySQL Server 1. Control-C. Control-C. Paste. Okay, cp configure, and wait. Execute it. Going back here, and we have the result sets, and again we can see the differences the differences between these. We can do them for example, we can choose to order them by the name of the setting, and it will be easier because we can see here, for example, we have polyphase network encryption for DIMS. It's 0 and 0, so it will be easier to spot the differences. But also you can go again to the table tools and you can go to display vertically, and you just instance name, and we'll the name we want to have this name will display it as a column, and we want also to see the config value, the run value, to be displayed. And we can see now the differences. If there is a difference, of course the logic can be enhanced to make it in red where we have rows which are different, but at least once again this is more meaningful data in this format than this format. Okay, so we have the possibility also to execute PowerShell scripts, and as you could see here in the discover and query, when it comes to DBA tools, PowerShell scripts and DBA tools, we have a lot of scripts that we can use, and they are very useful. For example, when it comes, let me say, search about user here. Search DBA, DBCC, DBA, DB user, and DBA, DB user permission. This it has a huge output if you don't filter it with some switches that this CMD let has. But let's execute the script. Instance DIMS, okay, and execute. We received an error for sure. Here see what instance DIMS. Going back here, paste. Let's see how the command behaves in PowerShell. Computer name, okay, DIMS. Why didn't execute it? Didn't execute it because I changed the computer name, and it doesn't find that computer name. So let me go back here again and try to execute it again. The command, I have the script selected. Okay, it seems now this time we'll execute it. Let's wait for the output. Okay, and this one, okay, let's stop the script here. So for each option here, we can run some hard-coded scripts which are generated based on user selection here, and it's useful not only because you can see some of the classes available in Windows Management Instrumentation, but also we can run scripts using SQL SMO. So it will just, let me take this as an example, and let's choose collation, cluster name, if it has addition, a default file. So as you can see, it will execute this script below for each collation server DIMS. Okay, the port. So first, going back here and to result set, we have this, and we can consume this output. We can filter to it. going back to the query and result set. So let's execute this script. And we have the the output here. So the possibility to be able to execute PowerShell scripts and also T-SQL scripts, it's better than to not have this possibility to execute the PowerShell scripts. Not to mention that DBA tools, you can retrieve almost everything about SQL Server using DBA tools modelettes. Okay. More about this. Now for SQL AMO is doing the same. Sometimes whenever I have to give some information or metadata when it comes to analysis services, it's hard to find this information. So having this scripts, I can just select the option, and I will just create an analysis services server object and run the PowerShell script and retrieve the data that I need. Of course, it's not error prone, and sometimes the script is not working, but at least you have everything in one place. As you can see, I'm leaving the script and show exactly what is executed, because this tool is not only to help you as a DBA, but also to teach you or to see how things are done. Okay, going back to this, we have Windows Management Instrumentation and these DBA tools. Yes, these are only the DBA tools modelettes, not Windows related or any other modules that you have. If you select the PowerShell option, it will query and retrieve all the modelettes. If I'm going back here, if I'm searching what that is doing, let me see. PowerShell. PowerShell get modelettes. Okay. PowerShell contain select command type, name, source expression. So this is the script that I'm using to retrieve the modelettes, and after that I'm building the XML anyway to display the data and use it further in the application. Going back here in the SQL database, I put this, for example, at every working place, you can use the sort procedure that the DB department or other departments are created. And of course, you can use SSMS, but I put CPWho using this display because I want to have the help about which the parameter and what this parameter does. You can use it if you type CP who is active and with the parameter help or something like that, you will have the help, and but it's harder to read than if you will have here. It will generate also the command, and you have exactly what it means, and it's easier for me if I have it like this. It's easier for me to see what this store procedure does and how it does it. Okay, going back to result sets. Another thing that SQL Server Management Studio and also Azure Data Studio doesn't have is the possibility to do the aggregations. So let's go to CPWho output. We don't have it here because we launch the application again. So let me go CPWho, execute, going back to result set. We increase this to have more real estate for the result set. And we want to do aggregation. We can have a glimpse to the aggregation by choosing more option, and for example I can display aggregation for this, and we have a count distinct. Depending on the column data type, it will provide this information. Because this is not numeric column, let's choose about the speed column. This should be a numeric column, so we should have more information about this. Okay, so we have account distinct, max 59 in one, and sum. This is also useful because if somebody will ask me, okay, can you tell me very quick how many sessions we have, and I can just do this, copy, and I will just try to paste it in Teams or in Excel, and this will be the output. I'm not happy with it because it's not in the tabular format, but for the time being, it's okay. Another type of so SSMS doesn't allow you to do aggregation for the result set, and I don't know if Azure Data Studio has this feature, but we can here I add a feature to do the aggregations for a result set. Here, aggregations. Okay. This GUI doesn't have an appealing user interface, but for me, it was not the user interface that I was missing when working with SSMS or Azure Data Studio or other tool. I wanted to have functionality. So I decided to put default checkboxes, default buttons, default everything. It's in default state. So if I want to aggregate this data from this result set, because maybe they tell me, okay, it seems that we have something that is executing in parallel, or see, or this speed, how many CPU is using, and so on. So you can just select select here what you want to aggregate. This can CPU time for sure. They should be numeric columns. So let's say that we want the sum of this KO, and we want to be grouped by the speed. So and here we can see the speed, but since the speed is not what we wanted, because it's there is no grouping in place, we have different speed. They might say, okay, can you tell me how many resources this login is consuming on the server, or maybe you want to say this application or this command. So we will group by something that is not unique. So we'll just change the speed, and we'll choose the program name to group by program name. And we can see here the aggregation. For example, we want to also to see the CPU usage. Okay, CPU usage. I'll put the sum. Okay, and if we want, we can group by multiple columns. So since on our SQL servers we can have connections for different from different hosts, and this command returns also the name of the host, db name, host name, but in our case it's only, we cannot work in DIMS. And okay, so we can group by that column also. So host name, group by, and as Power BI does, I'm splitting this with the pipe operator, but for example, you don't want, because you want to share this, or you don't want to have the program name and host name as a single column. So if you don't want to have that one, you'll just click the value here, which will split that column in these columns. Okay, so this is another feature that it's useful when you are working with SQL Server or with a result set. Of course, you can always go to taking the data from here and go to Excel and perform all the aggregation and the filtering that you want to do. But when it comes to smaller result sets, this tool is very useful, and I prefer to use it against using SSMS or Azure Data Studio. Okay. advanced result set,